All right, we have more changes unfolding in the money drain we're all witnessing in the U.S. national security state. Changes that have another $50 billion just allocated to go to the Ukraine. Only 5 or 6 weeks ago, the president sent $61 billion in American taxpayer money. Well, how fast that money goes. And now this new decision from the Biden administration and Western leaders could very well be the worst yet, the worst plan yet. Not hyperbole, this very well could be the spark that dethrones the US dollar for good, because this $50 billion that Biden just agreed to lend to Ukraine, well, you won't believe where they're getting this money from. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel, and consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So 80 years ago, at a small summit called Bretton Woods, the US dollar was chosen to be the world reserve currency. 44 countries participated in the decision, a decision, by the way, that altered the next 80 years of history and cemented the U.S. as the world superpower. Now, at the time, there were only two choices, and the USD was the safer bet. Realize this was right after World War II ended. We just won the war. FDR was president, highly popular president, by the way. This was the time when the reputation of the U.S. was at its high point. And for good reason. America, 80 years ago, was largely isolationist. We stayed the hell out of other countries' business, rarely intervened or involved ourselves or in European or in Asian conflicts, which is exactly what you'd want for a world reserve currency. But oh, how things have changed. And it's hard to see this, right? Because we're living it. But if you could bottle up the last 100 years and see it, really look at it from another nation's point of view, the U.S. has completely reneged on its original promise, the original agreement. Never would any of those 44 countries would have thought America would become what we are today, the world police essentially, using the dollar to levy sanctions, to punish any decision that we disagree with. Micromanaging, that's what we do. We micromanage world affairs and regional politics, using it to overthrow governments. How many times have we seen them try that? Well, look, everyone is sick of it, completely fed up. Even our allies realize the U.S. has too much power controlling the majority of world transaction settlements. It's around 59% of all transactions worldwide are settled in dollars. And that's why, as we all know, the dollar is in the process of being dethroned. This process, it could take 5 years, 10 years, hell, 20 years. Depends on one thing. Do countries distrust us enough to stop holding their money in U.S. reserves? It's not an easy thing to do. It's a pain in the ass for a central bank to do this. It all comes down to our foreign policies. Are we using the dollar as a weapon? The more we do that, the faster this process unfolds. So you'd think our State Department and the Biden White House would be making efforts, all efforts, to staunch the bleeding, stop the shedding of our allies. At this point, it's a simple decision. It's a binary choice. Each country has a choice. Continue to settle transactions in dollars or join the others who have already adopted multi-currency settlements. That's the choice. And this is happening now. It's been happening over the last year or two. Mostly adversaries are choosing the alternative thus far, but now even our allies are ditching the dollar as well. In fact, Saudi Arabia just announced they're dismantling the petrodollar, the anchor to the USD's power, gone. That just happened last week. And what's the Biden administration doing? Are they working behind the scenes to staunch the bleeding? Is Biden sending his State Department out to guarantee these countries that we're going to start to remain neutral? That's what they want. Your assets to be safe, your money, your reserves are safe in dollars. They want to know that. Not even a little, folks. In fact, it's the opposite. So check this out. A few days ago, the Biden administration signed off on lending Ukraine $50 billion more dollars, $50 billion with a B. But this time, he's not using American taxpayer money. It's even worse. He's using seized Russian assets that were held in dollars, that our Fed froze last year during the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. He's taking $50 billion of their money, of Russia's money, using their money to generate this $50 billion to give to Ukraine. This is the worst possible idea. I mean, this is such a bad idea that for months the Fed and the State Department, the Treasury have been stalling on doing this, trying to convince the White House not to do this. The repercussions are too great, yet they do it anyway. Look at this. Quote, new $50 billion loan to Ukraine's backed by frozen Russian assets. Leaders of the group of 7 wealthy democracies have agreed to engineer a $50 billion loan to help Ukraine in its fight for survival. Interest earned on profits from Russia's frozen central bank assets would be used as collateral. Details of the deal were being hashed out at G7 leaders at the summit in Italy last week. The money could reach Kyiv before the end of the year, according to U.S. and French officials. President Joe Biden told reporters at a news conference Thursday that the move was part of a historic agreement. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, said providing a loan through Russia's assets is a vital step forward in providing sustainable support for Ukraine in winning this war. And Biden's right when he says it's an historic agreement, historically stupid agreement. There's a reason this wasn't done before. It's illegal. First of all, it's theft. They're using Russia's own money to fund the war that they're fighting. Biden's team, they've wanted to do this for a year. But elements inside the U.S. government were holding them back, telling them they can't do this. Even Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, a Biden loyalist, knows this is a terrible idea. Watch her explain how this is flat out illegal. Watch this.
I think the United States and our partners, it's estimated, have blocked around 300 billion of those assets. And I think it's very natural that given the enormous destruction in Ukraine and huge rebuilding costs that they will face, that we all look to Russia to help pay at least a portion of the price that will be involved. That said, while we're beginning to look at this, it would not be legal now in the United States for the government to seize those statutes. It's not something that is legally permissible in the United States. Other countries have, legal issues around it as well. And there really are a number of issues.
It's almost like the Biden administration's purposely doing this, that de-dollarization is the policy. It's just bizarre. So look, with this one decision, it shows every country that their money's not safe. Central banks, they park their reserves in dollars. They do this by buying U.S. treasuries. The U.S. bond market, it's the best in the world, the safest in the world. It's the easiest to buy into, the easiest to sell out of. It ensures that you can access your country's assets in the blink of an eye when you need to. When you really need to, you can access your money, like in Russia's case. That's why people buy U.S. treasuries, even central banks. But you see, with this, it's not safe. Russia, like every other country in the world, parked their money in U.S. treasuries, and look what happened. We froze their assets last year. They can't access that money anymore. But now, even worse, we stole their money, and we're using it to wage a war against them. This is the opposite of what a global reserve currency should be used for. Nobody will trust us after this. It's hands down probably the worst decision a U.S. president could make, and because the world we live in, all the distractions, the media, nobody seems to even care or realize it's happening. People think it's normal. The media barely covered this. The neocons in Washington love this. Take the Atlantic Council. The quintessential neocon entity wrote this on their website, quote, good news arrived from Italy today because of the superb work of the Biden administration. The G7 finally agreed to the ingenious initiative to offer Ukraine this year a $50 billion low-interest loan collateralized by frozen Russian assets. These people are pirates, modern-day political pirates, and you may be wondering, why risk all this in the first place? Ukraine obviously can't win the war. Their country's been decimated. An entire generation of Ukrainians are gone. Infrastructure destroyed. For the last year, barely any land has been gained or lost. Just hundreds of thousands of young people, people our age, have been killed. And for what? Well, Lindsey Graham, like always, went on Face the Nation last week and said the quiet part out loud. Watch him explain the real reason for the Ukraine war. Watch this.
them. They're sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of. That $10 to $12 trillion of critical mineral assets could be used by Ukraine and the West, not given to Putin and China. This is a very big deal how Ukraine ends. Let's help them win a war we can't afford to lose. Let's find a solution to this war, but they're sitting on a gold mine.
So in a matter of 3.5 years, Joe Biden's managed to bring the world to its knees. We have hot wars raging across the globe. He increased the national debt to $35 trillion, and now all but guaranteed the end of our 80-year reserve currency. It's hard to imagine what would be left after 4 more years of this. All right, that wraps up the news portion of this video. Now I want to tell you about the sponsor for today, Hillcrest Energy Technologies. You can see their ticker symbol on the screen. Let me just say from the outset, I am excited about this company, about their product. So, you know, I'm a software engineer. I built Snapforce CRM, dozens of other applications over the years. But my passion for a long time when I was young was the hardware side, not the software side. It's why I learned to program in the first place. C was my first language. So when I came across Hillcrest Energy Technologies last week and I heard what they're working on, it caught my interest, to say the least. ZVS, zero voltage switching. It's like the holy grail of power conversion, something that's been just like unattainable. Countless companies have attempted to crack this problem, attempted to build an inverter to do this, and all of them failed until now. From what I hear, Hillcrest Energy Technologies pulled this off, like recently. This would be the first commercialized ZVS power inverter that we've seen. This is a huge deal. And the companies lining up to see this work are around the block. Car companies, solar companies, you name it. So let me just explain this quickly. ZVS, zero voltage switching, was set aside as one of those technologies that are still beyond today's microprocessor capabilities. The reason it's so difficult is because the current must be switched between DC to AC, right? Direct current to alternating current. This happens constantly, thousands of times per second. Each time it does, energy is lost. It's burnt off. Well, zero voltage switching solves that problem with only a negligible loss in efficiency. And look, this isn't for everyone. This type of deal, this type of company isn't for everyone. If you don't understand the business, their product, this will probably just sound like any other company to you. But if you do, if you're at all familiar with electrical engineering, then you'll get why this is a big deal. How a public company with around a $20 million market cap, that's it, has built and patented, yes, they've patented this prototype, the first and only functional commercial ZVS inverter prototype in the world. What this means is that companies whose products rely on high-frequency power conversion, products such as EVs, solar companies, etc., should be jumping at the chance to implement this into their build specs. I would. If I was running the build team over at Tesla or GM, this could mean substantially more power and major cost savings, by the way. It's just a much more elegant solution as an engineer. So here's what I know. This company currently valued around $20 million. That's it, folks. Now, that alone caught my eye. There's something remarkable about that, but also suspicious. The first thing I thought was, like, how? How is the market cap not popped after this news? Well, either the market hasn't caught up yet, or what I started to think was maybe this power inverter isn't as unique as I thought it was. Well, I looked into that, and yes, it is. Here's the CTO in his own words. Watch this.
Our inverter is the most efficient inverter that we're aware of at about a 99.7%. It has a 50 kilowatt per liter power density.
And from what I understand, Don Curry, the founder, CEO of Hillcrest Technologies, he's been flying around, meeting with huge companies that we all know and have heard of, and has been demonstrating their prototype. Basically, it's ready, right? It's in production, basically. From my perspective, in my opinion, once a big company, a big EV automaker, for instance, announces their plan to implement Hillcrest's inverter, if they do, I would think that that's when the market takes notice, if you follow me. And when that happens, if that happens, I would think a $20 million valuation, like it is right now, today, around $20 million, would be peanuts. We're talking about a small company here, folks, who's under the radar. And realize Hillcrest, they've spent more on R&D to build this product than the entire market cap of their company. So look, I would no doubt keep this one on my watch list. I love hunting for these undervalued small caps. The market overall, it's so overvalued right now, so finding companies with a high risk and dramatically high reward is what I personally enjoy doing. So I'm going to put a link to Hillcrest's website in the description. They're public, all the info's available. Make sure to do your own due diligence. I'm only providing some of the information on their company, on their product, and its use cases. All right, that wraps up this video. Like, subscribe, we'll see you next time.